Welcome back, everyone, to another segment of The MCR. Mac and me. My name's TJ. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you're watching us on Rumble, thank you very much. On to the topic. In this segment, if you notice, we titled this segment Atlas Shrugs in California. Those who are familiar with the writings of Ayn Rand or Ian Rand, however you want to pronounce her first name,
It's Ian.
Ayn Rand, knows exactly who Atlas is and the premise of the title of the novel. For those who aren't quite up to speed, I will quickly as possible explain what that title means. There's a mythical god by the name of Atlas, and he was kind of sentenced as punishment to hold the world upon his shoulders. Well, at some point, the weight of the world becomes too great for Atlas to bear, and he shrugs. Now, Ayn Rand writes the novel Atlas Shrugged, and without giving too much of the novel away, and it's a very lengthy novel, and they have three-part movie out too about it, which I've seen all three parts. Uh, yeah, watch it by all means. I would give it a solid B. Anyways, uh, in the novel Atlas Shrugged, the plot is you have all these successful businessmen and entrepreneurs who become so fatigued with societal decay, disarray, uh, government is in complete shambles. I'm searching for words here, but corrupt. The corruption has become so great that these businessmen just walk away. Thus, the title of the novel, Atlas Shrugged. Matt, did I explain that well enough?
Yeah, I would say so. In fact, I would encourage anybody to watch those three movies. The book is daunting. It's just I've compared it to reading the Bible. I think it's like 1,500 pages, and it's a lot. So, but as you watch these three movies, especially the first one, you start thinking, "This is happening," or "This has happened."
And
I've
I've said
seen
that in the
this.
past. I've said that in the past too.
Yeah, and that was the same exact reaction I have. The corruption, the chaos, particularly, is what the Democrats are all about.
Okay, so to actually get into the meat of our topic here, the oil industry in California has done an Atlas Shrugged. Literally, literally. I saw it on some second tier news sites, news videos. Then Victor Davis Hanson came out breathing fire about it. I'm sure everyone knows who Victor Davis Hanson is. Well, once I saw Victor Davis Hanson rant about it, and he ranted, okay, then I saw a Fox Business News report where Dagan McDowell, she unleashed to the point where she said, I don't feel sorry for these people. They voted for this. Now they're going to live it. And I'm like, wow. So I had to do some digging as to, because I'd already heard some stuff, but I was like, now I've got to dig deep and what exactly is going on here. Uh,
And what I'd like to say about her, I understand her sentiment, her feeling. However, there are people who didn't vote for it who are going to get the same punishment or sentence or consequence to this lunacy.
you are correct. And to be fair and balanced, we'll say California is reliably 35 to 40% Republican. It's just between San Francisco, Los Angeles, uh, all those types of cities on the coast, they have the numeric superiority. You know, kind of like New State of New York, I would tell you. Anyways, as I digress, Chevron or I say last year because this year's almost early this year, because we're still in 2025, in the early parts of this year, Chevron closes a refinery. Phillips 66 is very close to completion of closing a refinery. Next year, 2026, by summer, Valero will have a refinery closed. With the closing of these three refineries, they estimate a near 20% loss in oil production, gasoline, however you want to phrase it, term it. I believe it was the CEO of Phillips 66, but it might have been one of the other two. But one of the CEOs attempted in good faith to reach out to Governor Newsom. His response was, "We don't need to talk."
Good. I'm good, is what he said.
Well, in my research, because now I'm like, what the heck? In the early 1980s, California had something like 30 plus refineries. Okay, 30 plus. They're down to, I don't know. I've read one place 11, one place 10. I think part of the problem is after these refineries close, they could be down to 8. I think, you know, but they've lost 2/3 of the refineries. You can easily say that since the
Well, one of the things that drives up the price of gas in this country is lack of refineries. And I remember in the early 2000s, George W. Bush, of whom I'm no fan of, but he wanted to use a closed military bases. There was a rash of military bases, including, I think, the one here in Michigan, Selfridge Air Force Base, and I don't know what the current status of that is, but it was set to close. They were going to want to turn those places into refineries, increasing the number of refineries, and therefore it would have lowered the price of gas significantly.
Well, as far as Selfridge, it's kind of a joint task force training facility now. It used to be an Air National Guard base. You still have Air National Guard units there, but you have all components of some sort. I think even maybe the Coast Guard, because I think to legitimize it remaining open and operating, they turned it into a joint task force training facility of sorts. I, Off topic, but just an FYI there.
As
Oh,
a youth, I actually lived there for a summer.
every time when I was in the guard, every time I went there, I felt like I was going in through a time machine, you know? Anyways, back to the oil industry. When asked, these CEOs made no bones about it. Uh, hostile business environment, and they one of these, and I forget which, is going to spend $1 billion just to relocate to Texas. That's how badly they want to be through with California. For a company
Well,
to pay a billion dollars.
I heard that the operating cost in California for a refinery are 35% above what they would be anywhere else. Now, tell me what if you had a popsicle stand, you couldn't absorb an extra 35% in operating costs when you could just move down the street and not pay that.
The cost of living is such that the oil companies couldn't even entice, recruit, pay their engineers what ought to be good paying jobs didn't pay enough. And and the
Not for that nonsense.
and it at some point the oil companies are going to cry uncle, like that's it, we're through. You know what? Thus Atlas shrugs, you know?
In the novel, that's exactly what happens. The producers quit producing because the takers are going to take it all.
Yeah.
In
Uh
time, they will take it all.
and that's, you know what, if all of that wasn't bad enough, it there are so many pieces to this that make it so much worse. For instance, I'm not a physicist or a microbiologist or whatever you got to be. You have light crude and heavy crude.
Geologists would cover that.
Okay, geologist. You have light crude and heavy crude, and once a refinery is built and set up for light or heavy, you just don't switch. It appears the California refineries are geared more towards the heavy crude. A lot of it comes from Canada, but it looks like they could be importing up to 20 by the end of next year. They could be importing up to 20% from various locations in Asia. They've kind of left it general because I don't think they know where they're going to get it from other than maybe Iraq, maybe India, maybe this place, maybe that place. Maybe I think I even heard Korea in one article, you know. I don't think they know where they're going to get this oil from. And then
Well,
it's got to be
you
the
know,
right kind of oil.
if I were J.D. Vance's team, I would already be plotting my run against Gavin Newsom based on Gavin Newsom has said, I'm going to do to the United States what we've done in California. And then I would just show picture after picture after picture of 10, 11, $12 a gallon gas and say, this is what he wants to do for you.
And here's something else. Even if they transport oil from a U.S. East Coast facility to California, guess what? The Jones Act mandates it be on a U.S. flagged vessel. There's only 55 U.S. flagged vessels, and only a handful of them are equipped to carry or handle heavy crude. So that makes it hard. Also, California, in essence, has made themselves a financial island of sorts. There is no pipeline leading from anywhere into California to relieve them of this situation. Uh, and uh, for instance, and here's something else. There's a colonial pipeline that I guess starts in Texas and eventually ends in the state of New York. Okay, but the state of New York, their oil demand exceeds what this pipeline can supply. So New York, and primarily New York City, has to import any oil that they're not able to, they need to make up the difference of whatever their demand is, okay? Well, if California is importing 20% of their oil next year, by the end of next year, uh, this is going to affect New York City because, in essence, California will be competing with the state of New York for oil.
Which is going to raise the price for New York and California. I know viewers are already thinking, so what's this got to do with me? I don't live in New York or California. So, in your research, have you come across what anyone is saying the consequence is going to be for the rest of us? Because I got to believe there's going to be one.
Well, Arizona and Nevada are pretty much shaking in their boots because they are heavily reliant on California for their gasoline. Okay. Uh, it gets worse. It gets worse. California, by state law, has to have a special type of gasoline in that state. In other words, even if, and let's just Michigan, we produce and refine a certain type of gasoline. It's not allowed to be sold in California. And this is all because of environmental regulations. You talk about the perfect tsunami of a financial destruction. The oil companies have had it. This isn't just Atlas Shrug. This is the ultimate shrug. You know.
Well, at some point, the people of California are the only ones who can stop this or turn this around by, first off, they have a one party system. Only the Democrats, by and large, only the Democrats can win in California because of the way they have it rigged. Same thing in Alaska with their goofy voting system. Until these people have suffered enough, and this goes back to Dagan, what's her name said,
McDowell.
until they've suffered enough. George Washington is credited with saying, until the people suffer greatly, they will not change. Well, they're going to have to suffer greatly before they change, I'm afraid.
Well, soon to be ex FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino said many, many, many times on both his radio show and podcast, people will only change when it gets bad enough. And I mean, how can this not be bad enough in California? Oh, and by the
Well, they
way,
just never seem to get over it. Well, they suffer from TDS for one thing.
yeah, by the way, Oregon and the state of Washington are in a similar situation, just not just on a smaller scale. Oregon,
And it's all based on a fictitious problem.
yeah, Oregon produces no oil. They're heavily reliant on Washington. Washington's already said, "Hey, we're not producing like we used to. Uh, good luck." Good luck. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but that's sure what it sounds like from what I've been reading. Good luck. Okay.
It's like living in an apple orchard and saying I'm not going to eat apples, and that's the only food you have.
one slightest bit of
Starved to death then.
one slightest bit of factoid I'll throw out, and then we can wrap up whatever final comments you have. It is not outside the realm of possibility by the end of next year. And of course, this is all projection. Okay. You know what? You know what? Maybe someone will get their excrement together. Okay. But by the end of next year, it's not outside the realm of possibility gasoline could be sold for $8 to $10 a gallon. Do you know what that is for a an F-150 or a Dodge Ram or whatever? You're talking what, $200 to fill up your tank?
Well, it goes to the bubble problem we have in this country, and we see it in Washington all the time, but it's there in California as well, or even here in Michigan. It's the Gavin Newsom doesn't put gas in his car, so he doesn't care. The guy barely scraping by. This is going to devastate him.
You know,
Problem is then that same guy will say, "Well, Trump was president while I couldn't eat," and blame Trump
I will add
and
this.
not Newsom.
I will add this as an add-on, and I ran across this the last minute, so forgive me for specificity, but it sounds like other businesses are following suit. Uh, just more businesses are Atlas shrugging is what I'm going to kind of describe it. They're they're tired of the taxes. They're tired of the cost of living. They can't get people. And this is what frustrated the oil companies. They couldn't even recruit from outside of California. Hey, can you go to California and work at this refinery? And the response was get bent. You know, it's like whatever. And and I did read that California was, and they still might be, but I don't know for how long, leading agricultural state. But if you need gasoline to run your farm equipment, what happens
Or
there?
diesel, which is a oil derivative.
They're worried about the airline industry. How are these jets going to get their fuel? You know, it's just it's one problem after another, and these tankers that got to come from Asia. What if there's a typhoon, or or heck, all it takes is an earthquake with a
Well,
tsunami.
it's not
You
even a
know?
matter of what if; it's a matter of when,
Yeah.
because those things are going to happen.
Well, and even under perfect conditions, it's reported that it could take up to 4 weeks under ideal navigating uh, means, transportation. It'll still take 4 weeks. So, you know, there is no quick fix. There is no switch to turn on, and they've begun and are currently beginning to shut down these refineries. You just don't start them right back up. This is a done deal,
Yeah,
and you know what? Atlas has shrugged. All right, and
indeed he has.
I've said my piece. And final thoughts, Mac?
Nope,
Nope.
we've covered everything we needed to.
All right. Thanks everyone. If you're still watching, thank you very much. And we'll catch you on our next segment. As always, be safe. Watch your six, and don't tread on me.